Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel Code with Golden Cat. Today we'll be talking about two fundamental concepts of Vue, that is interpolation and data binding. Now these terms might sound a little bit intimidating, but don't worry, we'll get through them quite easily. So let's begin. Now here I have created a simple skeleton project to demonstrate our example for interpolation and data binding. Now here in the index.html file, we simply have a div that contains a heading, that is Code with Golden Cat, and an empty paragraph. Then there is also a script link here that connects our HTML file with our app.js file, which is currently empty. Then we have this link tag here that connects our HTML file with our custom CSS. Now I'll not go through this custom CSS because this course deals with Vue and not CSS. If you want a course on CSS, you can let me know down in the comments below. So here in the HTML file, suppose if I want to add something in the paragraph tag like hello world and then save it, you can see that it gets visible in the web page. So if I copy the path of this HTML file and then open it in the web browser, you can see it says hello world. And if I make any changes in the paragraph tag like hello world 1, that also gets reflected here. Now suppose if I don't want to add this hello world 1 here statically, but I want my code to add it. So suppose in the runtime, I want to change it as I go because of some processing or any user input. So how can I do that? Now in that scenario, Vue comes into play. You can also do that using simple vanilla JavaScript, but that becomes a little bit hectic and it requires a lot more code. Now before using Vue, we have to first include Vue. So there are two ways of including Vue. One, you either install its npm package, or second, you use a script tag. So if I go to Vue web page and then click on quick start, you can see the first way we can add Vue is by installing it via npm. But the second way that we are more interested in with is using this script tag. So we'll simply copy it and then add it here just below the div. Now our app can use Vue. Now how to use Vue is we go to app.js and then type in Vue, which is a global object. Then write create app, that is a method that it offers. And then we have to mount this on a particular div or ID. So here I'm using hashtag app, which is the ID for our div. So you can use Vue on some part of your web page, or you can use it on the whole web page. It depends on your requirement and how you want to use it. So here I'm using it on a part of our web page, and I'll show you that in a moment. So here we are interested with the data property, which takes in a function, but there is a shorthand for writing all of this. You can simply type in data, and then this function would return a key value pair. So we can write return message, and then let's just say hello Vue. Add some indentation. Now I can use this message directly in my paragraph, but if I type in like message and then reload my web page, it simply says message. Now how can I use the value of message instead of its name? So there interpolation comes into play. So I can simply add the syntax double curly braces here and then double curly braces here. And now it would be accessing the variable or object message instead of the literal. So if I go here and reload this, you can see it's now showing hello Vue. So this string interpolation is a one-way data binding. So to use a real-world analogy to explain it, you can think of a teacher writing some homework on a blackboard and the students noting it down. So there it's a one-way communication or data binding because the students can only note the data. They can't change the homework. Now there is another type of data binding here, a two-way data binding. So you can take an example of a phone call, which is a two-way binding, because in a phone call, both the parties can send and receive the data at the same time or sequentially. Now with interpolation, it's not only required that you use a string here. You can also pass in a value like integer 1 to 3 and then reload it. And also you can pass in an array of objects like 1, 2, 3, and it still displays it. Now that we understand how interpolation works, let's see how data binding works in Vue. So let's go back to our HTML page and let's make it take half the screen, and we can open the other half with browser. Now here, suppose if I add an input tag here and then reload our page, we have an input box here. Now what if I want to add some value or default value to this input box? So how I can do that is I'll use a attribute called vModel that comes with Vue only, and then use temp in it. Now in our app.js file, we can simply add that temp as a new key value pair. And for now, I'll call it as default value. Now if I reload this again, you can see it is automatically populated with default value. So this is how we use vModel attribute of Vue for doing a data binding. Now this is a two-way data binding, as I've already mentioned, which kind of acts like a phone call. So what I mean by that is if I make some changes in this temp variable, then those changes would be reflected in the UI or another component of UI. So to demonstrate that, let's add another paragraph tag, and that tag will be using interpolation on temp. Now suppose if I write something else, let's just say hello world, you can see that it's getting reflected in real time in the paragraph tag that we have here. So when you are changing the value of input tag, it changes the value of temp variable effectively, which then changes the paragraph tag interpolation. So this is how two-way binding works in Vue. Now there are also another way of adding data binding in Vue. So to show that, we'll use another paragraph tag and we'll add learn more about Vue. And let's just say I want to add a link on Vue. So I'll use an anchor tag and then use href. And then I can simply pass in www.google.com. I also need to use HTTPS. Now if I reload it, you can see that Vue literal has a link on it. If I click on it, it directs me to the Google web page. Now I can also pass this website URL using data binding. I'll add another key value pair here, which says URL. Then type in HTTPS www.google.com. Then save it. And then to use it here, I can't simply just type in URL here because it would take it as a literal. You can either use an interpolation here, but there is a better way of doing it. You can use v bind attribute of view, which binds this attribute href property with URL variable. So now if I reload this again, this still works as expected. Now there is also a shorthand for writing vbind. You can simply remove this vbind and use a colon here, and it would still mean the same thing. If I reload it and click on view, it still redirects me to the Google web page. Now there is one more thing that I want to show you before we end this video, is how we can use Vue on a particular section of web page. So suppose right now I'm only mounting the Vue application to app ID div. So if I create another div here and write hello world, and let's give this div an ID of Vue. Now inside this, if I reload it here, you can see I have hello world. But if I use the interpolation here after hello world and then save it, you can see it is using it as a literal and not passing the value of message variable. So this is happening because you have only mounted the Vue application on app ID, not on Vue ID. As always, we'll end this video with a quote that says, "It does not matter how slowly you go as long as you do not stop." Thank you for watching and have a great day.